look at your setting.
You like this?
Yeah, immediately I feel better when I look at your surroundings.
Oh, I'm glad.
Where are you?
Beautiful.
That's not the house that I've been to. It looks like the house that I went to in Venice, but it's not.
I live in Silver Lake now. My boyfriend and I got a place in Silver Lake on the east side.
And you found another place with a magical outdoor space.
Yes, it's a must. It's like, why else live in LA?
That's right. That's right. It's so pretty.
How you doing? You look beautiful.
I'm good, thank you. So do you.
Thank you. I got dressed up just for you.
You look great.
I need to rub in my makeup a little bit.
I have all these questions for you.
Bring it on.
All right, let's start. So, Millana, we wanted to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship today. And I want to know, what is it about you and your personality that lends itself to the entrepreneurial spirit?
Ooh.
What would you say is sort of within you that has made you always strive and always to be an entrepreneur?
Well, that's a really good question. Well, first of all, also thank you for having me.
Of course.
You've always been such a friend and support for me, and I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you for taking the time to say that, because we love our community, we love the people that we champion, and we love our friends, and we love you, and so we're happy to have you, and we really believe in everything that you're doing. So it's important to be connecting with you, especially right now, I think.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I guess to answer your question on why, or what is it about my personality innately, I suppose that kind of lends me to be an entrepreneur. I think, one of my friends actually said this to me the other day. He goes, as long as I've known you, you've been allergic to having a 9-to-5.
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
I've never really had like a real job, and I've always been the kind of person that was very headstrong about doing what I felt I was here to do, and felt very passionate about being able to live my life the way I wanted to live it. And I think an entrepreneur has to have that to be able to get through the incredible challenges of being an entrepreneur. As I know, I mean, it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, what kind of support you have. Being an entrepreneur is hard. Point blank period. And
that's a really important point to make. I think you're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and I think just having that like inner fire that you want to live your life is really like something that you can practice and build, but is an essential part of being an entrepreneur.
Describe your view on wellness and on healing as well. What is your personal view on wellness and on healing?
Well, I think the first thing that I always like to say about that is that everyone has their own unique experience of what wellness means to them. And I think one of the things that
That's interesting.
Yeah? Why is that?
Yeah, I think so. I think I don't know. I think that wellness is something that a lot of people talk about, especially like on social media. And I think you're right. I think it means something very, very different to a lot of different people. And I think that is something that probably should be talked about more. Like, wellness is, it's a concept. It's not, anyway, so what is your view on wellness and healing?
Exactly. I think, it's this idea that what's taken place, at least on social media, is that wellness looks a certain way. And for me, I really want to encourage people to find out what that means for them individually. And in my experience, it's been very much a experimental process, and just trying different things and exposing myself to different teachers and practitioners and lineages and books until I found the things that work for me. And a lot of the energy healing that I do today is actually an amalgamation of many different lineages, many different practices since I was like 4 years old. And so,
which is like, it's primed you to do what you do, really, which is to create this. We're going to get into Wellness Official very soon, but like to create this hub, this actual, this hub for all sorts of healing modalities. What healing practices do you do for your own self weekly? What are you doing right now?
That's a really good question.
Or has that fallen maybe to the wayside? Maybe you're working too hard. I don't know.
Well, I can say that the past 2 weeks has been really challenging personally, and just also holding space for people has been challenging, not because I don't want to do it, but because it's a big balance being able to go through the healing process of what we're all experiencing as an individual, but then to also obviously do that with
I agree.
people at
Yeah.
scale. And so what I find is when things get tough, I have to double down on my practices. And, you know, a lot of my friends, even Therese, who's in here right now. Hi,
Hey,
Therese.
Therese.
We've been preparing for times like these for a long time. So, you know, I wouldn't be able to hold space or even have this kind of conversation right now if I hadn't been practicing doing really deep work for a long time.
I appreciate that. I have to say that I really appreciate that. But one thing that I want to ask is that, you know, I think you just said that when times are difficult, you double down. And I think for a lot of people, they do the opposite. We do the opposite. I'm guilty of that myself. It's like when times get stressful or busy or rough, it's very easy. Hey, Amy, it's very easy to not double down and to do the opposite. To let it go. So can you tell me what it is? What do you summon in yourself to be able to like sort of gather the strength, and not even strength, like for me it's like focus, to gather the focus to say, actually, I'm going to double down on everything I need to do for myself during this time.
Totally. And I think my answer will kind of also answer the last question, because I think for me, and this has been a theme in my life since I was a child, is to constantly seek out spirit and my inner guidance system, my inner intuition, my inner knowing. So yeah, I think basically it comes down to the fact that we really all need to find out what it is that works for us. And for me, breathwork has been one of the most powerful ways to do this deeper healing. And I don't know, I could definitely tell you guys more about it, but I would love for people just to start exploring. And like I said, we're doing something for free on Friday, so you're free to join us.
Oh, good. Okay, so everybody, please join Wellness Official on Friday. What time?
It's going to be at 12 ET. I'm really trying to get this so that this looks good.
12 ET is perfect. I will be there, and I encourage everybody else to be there. It's a perfect time to learn how to do breath work, real breath work.
Yes.
But also, Millana, you also practice Reiki, and for people who aren't aware, can you explain in detail what your Reiki sessions are like?
Yeah. So I actually developed my own method over the past like 25 years, and people always wonder how 25 years. I've been doing this since I was like 4.
Yeah.
So, and Reiki was actually one of the lineages that I was able to get some deeper understanding around. But I realized that a lot of what I was working on and doing wasn't really involving the symbols of Reiki. And I really started to kind of combine all these different concepts over many years. And so what I actually practice is what I call integrative energy healing. And I think this actually kind of points to my general philosophy that we all have to find what works for us, because what I really work to teach is that we all have our own unique gifts and our own unique experiences of self-healing. And from our own self-healing, then we can apply our unique perspective on how we can help other people heal. And so my energy healing focuses on the 7 main chakras in the auric field. And we also use breath work. And it's with this idea that, you know, we all individually have subconscious thoughts, subconscious trauma, subconscious repressed memories and feelings that we're holding in our physical body, our emotional body, our mental body, our spiritual body. And that if we can just drop down into more presence, then that can start to come up so we can understand what's been operating in the background without our permission.
Right.
And so once we start to apply the energy healing, which is really the energy healer, myself or whoever is in the lineage that we work in, to really be able to come into a deep state of presence so that they can perceive what aspects of yourself have been suppressed to help you move through that energetically and emotionally and mentally, so you can just let that stuff go and actually like see the kind of shit that you've been holding on that you didn't choose, that you can now choose to leave or to accept.
Yeah, really important right now. For people wanting to begin yoga and meditation, for example, practices right now, but they're stuck. I think that a lot of people like the idea of yoga and they like the idea of meditation, and I think a lot of people do feel stuck. what do you have to say to them to help them get started?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So this one is actually probably not going to be the most popular response for people, but I think it's the
That's
most.
fine. We like that's good. What
If
is
you're
it?
feeling stuck right now, and I'm sure a lot of us are, I want you to know, A, this is totally human, and this is totally like a part of the healing process. And the feeling stuck is actually the thing that you need to be most present with. So I find sometimes we're like, oh, I'm stuck, so I'm going to force myself to go get this thing done. I'm going to force myself to go to yoga. And while yoga and doing the thing can actually help you move through certain emotions or help you like go and get shit done, if you really want that deeper healing and you really want to have that more sustainable flow in your life so that you're not constantly running into a stuck place, it's actually sitting with what are my emotions that I'm suppressing, that I don't want to acknowledge, that are making me feel stuck because I'm not allowing myself to move through these things that are coming up for me. So a lot of times stuckness, even like in our minds or creative flow or work, stuckness is actually an inability to face what is coming up for us that we've suppressed and not wanted to look at, instead of actually allowing ourselves to look at it, stop being numb of it or from it, and allowing yourself to move through it, even if it's really ugly or really scary in some cases.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really what we need to look at, even if it's something as simple as, oh man, I really want to do yoga, but I just can't get myself to do it.
Yeah.
Well, let's look at what's really going on. Is there something here around self-care, self-love, allowing yourself to really take care of yourself that might be related to experiences that you had as a child that are actually being represented in the form of exercise or the form of stepping into your creative calling? And I can always say from doing this work as a healer, it usually is going to point towards something that happened to you as a child that has been undealt with.
Wow. Wow. We talked a little bit about this on our podcast with you, but I'd like to talk about it now, especially now that we've been in quarantine for a while. How do you start your day and how do you end your day? What are your daily rituals right now?
Oh, yeah. Well, Amy on my team is on here. She knows I don't really get on my phone before 10 a.m. If she sees an email come through at like 7 or 8, she's like, whoa, what's going on over there?
Yeah.
I am really militant about really giving myself the space to do all of my practices before I get on my phone and start doing the thing. And for me, before I even get out of my bed, it's doing my simple breath work and self-energy healing practices, because I really want to be able to start the day with intention. So it's like, okay, how do I want to feel today? How am I feeling? Wow, I feel kind of like stuck, or I feel angry, or I feel excited. I want to take the time before I even get out of the bed to really make sure that I move through what I don't want to keep going through the rest of the day, and actually then amplify the feelings and the experiences that I do want to continue to build momentum on for the rest of the day. So I think just taking that time in the morning is probably one of the biggest things for me that's really made a difference to make my life like just better, and especially in quarantine time.
Yeah, it's huge.
And then I would say journaling. And I think we talked about this.
We did. We talked a little bit about journaling, but you're still doing a lot of journaling.
I feel like people are like, yeah, duh, I know that. But one of the things that I really like to emphasize when it comes to journaling is that there's one thing that you can do that's a little bit differently than just like writing down everything that is happening in your day.
Okay, interesting. Share, please.
So when we get into like the deeper practices of journaling, it looks like channeling. So I'm actually going to encourage everyone that's listening, that's open to journaling and using it as a powerful spiritual tool, to use it for literally channeling. So sometimes I will go to my journal, and let's say I have like lower back pain, and I'm like, God, I have this lower back pain. I don't know what's going on. I will write 3 pages of free flowing thoughts asking my back pain, what is your message for me? And then I will just allow myself to write without stopping, as though I am my back pain speaking to myself. So I will spend time doing that kind of practice with everything from like Cleopatra to the archangels to my future self that is 20 years from now. And it can get kind of weird and mystical, but it also is a really great practice of allowing yourself to pull down the veil of what it means to edit yourself or be what people think you should be in a time that's just about you and whatever it is that you want to come into contact with.
Yes, I've definitely done that kind of free form journaling, and it's very powerful. Like, you sort of can't even believe what you begin to write on a page. Yeah.
What did, like, give me one. I want to
I don't
hear.
know. I mean, I can't remember. I mean, this was like I was an English major in college, and English at the school that I went to. I went to the United Nations International School here in the city, and English was a huge thing for us, and we used to do that kind of journaling. So I learned that very early on, that you can just really, you know, without being so conscious of what you're doing, you can really channel through your writing. It's really amazing if you just keep writing, and it's unbridled, and that, you can really discover, so many things come from that piece of writing that you would be shocked by. I had
Totally.
no idea I was thinking this. I had no idea this was in my brain. Yeah, for
Totally.
sure.
And I find, I don't know about you, but I find that a lot of times after I wrote those 3 or 4 or 5 pages, I don't even remember what I write until I go
Yeah.
back and I'm like, oh shit, I really was channeling. That was not me.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. And you've told me this, and this is something else we've talked about. We've talked about it on the podcast. You began to sense your deep intuition and spirituality as a child, I think, with your grandmother. Is that correct?
Yes.
And when was the moment? Let's talk about stepping into your calling. When was the moment that you feel you stepped into your calling, and why that moment, and why not anytime sooner? Because
Oh.
you're now doing sort of the work that was sort of passed down from your grandmother in a lot of ways, that you experienced with her, that you awakened with her. And so I'm just curious as to sort of when was the moment that you stepped into that calling, and why then, do you think? Do you have any thoughts or ideas around that?
Yeah. There's actually 2 different times that come up. The first one that came to mind was my experience with Project Runway, which I think we've talked about.
We talked about
Right?
Project Runway, yeah.
Yeah.
Explain.
Yeah, for anybody who hasn't heard me tell this story, and I see some of my community here, so I know you guys have heard this like 15 times, but
Right.
I was on Project Runway 10 years ago, actually. And
Crazy.
this time 10 years ago, I was on the show filming in New York, and I had just graduated from college. I was like closeted spiritual, as I call it. Like, I hadn't come out of my spiritual closet yet. And
I was, a lot of people that I talk to, not a lot, I wouldn't say a lot, but I've heard that more than once, that it sort of takes people like you some time to warm up and come out of the closet, as you say.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on.
Yeah, because I mean, even to this day, now that I have this identity as Millana, the energy healer, and all of these things, like, saying some of the things that I say are still very shocking to most people. We live in a bubble where a lot of this is normal, but
Right.
So the part that I think I'm so glad that I started telling this story about, because honestly, I only started telling this story in the past 3 years, is that I had just graduated from college. I went to City College in Harlem, studied advertising. I had literally graduated 10 days prior, and I had gotten a call from my agent, and he said, you've got an audition for Project Runway. You have 30 minutes to get there. You better go right now. And I hung up the phone, and as I hung up my phone, I heard, you are the winner of Project Runway. And because I have been, closetedly spiritual at that point for many, many years, I was like, shit, that's God. And I remember literally having my phone. I think it was a flip phone at the time, actually.
Oh, yeah, about 10 years ago.
I think it was like a Razor or something. I don't know. But I was like, oh, God, can I just like go to the audition before you tell me that I've won? Like, can I get casted first? And I went to the audition, and I felt that there was a presence there. I felt like, oh my gosh, something is happening here. And I came home that night, and I prayed, and I said, God, if this is actually the show that I get casted on, if I get casted by them tomorrow, I'm going to make the commitment to do my part in holding that vision and that reality in my vibration. I'm going to meditate it. I'm going to literally act as though it is, because I knew the law of attraction. I knew that thoughts become things. I knew those things. And so I was like, I'm going to let this be a co-creative experience and trust that that's real. And the next day I got the job, and that's when I was like, oh shit, I guess I got to really do this. And I spent 4 months every day meditating, every day visualizing, doing all the things. And I won. And it was a turning point for me. And I think to answer your question, one of the ways that I stepped into my calling, because I realized in the most public freaking way, I mean, Project Runway was the #1 show in the world that year.
It really, 10 years ago, it was.
It was insane.
Very public, very
public. And so to be able to like have something happen on such a large stage, but in the interior, in my inner world, to know what the basis of it was, which was that it was a spiritual revolution for me, that's when I knew that I couldn't do anything unless it was that deep, unless it was that personal, unless it was that in my truth. And that was probably the biggest turning point for me into really coming into my purpose.
Millana, is there any advice that you could share about how people can tap into their own calling, particularly now when people are really able to focus on what's important? Because so much has been weeded out in their lives.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a great question, T. I mean, I think this is the #1 time to step into your purpose for the exact reason that you just said. We've been stripped of so many of the things that we call our identity, right? So many of us can't travel. Like, so many of us have been like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go and jet off because I don't like where I am, so I'm just gonna leave and forget about it.
There's a lot of extra and a lot of distraction and a lot that's just not there. And I think it's really allowing people, I think it's great, allowing people to really quiet the noise and see what resonates, see what rises to the surface, right?
Exactly. So this is, although it can be challenging, I think the most important time because of obviously what the pandemic has rearranged for all of us as a collective, but also individually. But then obviously everything that's happening with race in America, well, it's always been happening. I want to make sure I say that, but
yes.
But what we're now being all privy to, and what we're all now having to face as a collective, I think we're now being like, oh my gosh, like I'm supposed to do something. I think everybody who is in touch with some aspect of their truth, it's like, I need to do something. I'm here to make a difference. And this is the thing, everyone is here to make a difference. I tell my clients all the time, when we really spend time in our spirit and our soul selves, we realize that we came here to do something that only we could do. Only like spirit is like, boop, I'm going to drop into this body to do this one thing that this body can do for the collective, for the whole. And so one of the ways that we can start to do it is like, you guys, we got to spend more time being in touch with our spirit. And I don't mean it in a religious way at all. And I don't mean it in a way that's my way either. Whatever way that you can do it, and it's really up to you as an adult, not just you, T, but like as us people, to like take the responsibility to find out, what do I need to do? What do I need to study? And to be a seeker of your own soul and your own experience of your soul. The more time you spend in your soul and experiencing what that means beyond my own words of that, you're going to start to recognize that you came here to do something huge in your physical body. And so like I could give you like a list of things to do and books to read, but ultimately it's on you as an adult to find out what that is for you, and only you can do that. And actually at this time, we're asking you to do that.
Yeah, it's very powerful. Millana, describe your company, Wellness Official, for people that
I get so passionate.
What?
I said I get so passionate. I'm like, oh my God, here I go again.
No, we love that.
Well,
for people that may not know, describe. It'd be great to hear you describe what Wellness Official is once again, especially again right now.
Yeah. So I started Wellness Official after really coming to a deep reckoning in my own personal experience and in my work that wellness was meant to be for everyone, but not everybody was represented and not everybody was being spoken to. And I wanted to change that. And I knew that if that was going to change, I had to be a person that was going to be about that change. And so one of the ways that we've been doing that behind the scenes before we even launched it as a platform online was to start connecting practitioners to brands, to hotels and individuals all over the world. And so we have thousands of practitioners in the community that we've been working with literally since 2012, from New York, London, Barcelona, Paris, LA, the list goes on and on, really working to bring people programming, that could meet them where they are, but then also like push them to their edge to really get them to see themselves.
Do you realize what a visionary you were?
Ah,
you know, look at where we are now, and look at what limit. You know, there are certain limitations that we have now, and you really built a forward-thinking business. Did you ever stop and think about that?
You're gonna make me cry.
Sorry.
I mean, you know, I was just talking to my friend about that vision today. It's like I've been waiting for at least 10 years for this moment. And, you know, there were many, many years where there was no validation of this vision at all.
I get it. I understand. 100%.
I know you do.
So you said you've got thousands of practitioners,
Yeah.
right? Who are part of Wellness Official. How did you source them? Can you tell us a little bit about how you came to collect all these wonderful people that have all these wonderful skills?
So something I should also specify is like what we have on the Wellness Official site right now is some of our practitioners that we're showing are the people that we've worked with. So we've right now we've got like about 15 practitioners on the site that you can read about.
I saw that.
Right? And so the full like community is literally from almost 10 years of working with these brands and these different communities and institutions in person. And so the way that we were able to bring this community and database, which you can't even see all of it on the website right now, is because we literally just worked with a shit ton of people.
Yeah.
And it was super grassroots. Like, okay, we're going to do rooftop yoga games, you know?
Your database for the last, what, 20 years or 15 years or whatever?
Yeah, exactly. And just doing the thing, doing what we're passionate about, connecting with practitioners and teachers and authors that we love, that we've learned from, that we've worked with and realize are the real deal. And so, you know, so many of them I think are here now. And, you know, we are constantly plugging them into things behind the scenes too. And I think when I say wellness, and I'm actually now saying wellness and healing, because I realize that those two things need to be more clear in our climate today. But wellness and healing being for everyone means that everyone is represented in that experience. So we really have worked to have practitioners that are like coming from different countries, have different languages, shapes and sizes, ages, ethnicities, etc. So I think that's really important.
Yes, yes. Let's talk about, why don't you take us back to the moment when you decided it was time to create Wellness Official? What was the exact catalyst? Tell people, for people that don't know.
But did I tell you this before? I told you, right?
Tell me and I'll remember.
Okay. Well,
I'm sure we definitely talked about this. This is 100% a question I would have asked you before. Yeah,
this is especially now. This is a really relevant question for me personally because
I love that.
I had my first company. Serene is actually how I met Alicia years ago. Our beautiful mutual friend, one of our mutual friends. And it was back in 2012. I had my first company, Serene. After 5 years, I brought 2 women in to help me take it online and into a bigger platform. And those 2 women ended up actually taking over my company behind my back after a year. And it was such a painful, harmful experience, especially
that does happen. That does happen.
Yeah, it happens a lot, actually. And you realize, like, wow, that happens a lot. But I think the implications of it were a little bit more painful because it also just happened to be 2 white women. And I felt like I was, for the first time in my life, realizing that this is a part of a larger narrative that I had experienced but never had.
That's interesting, Millana. Not to cut you off, but I don't think we ever talked about it in depth from that perspective. So you felt victimized, you know, what was it about the fact that they were white and you were not 100% white that changed the narrative for you?
Yeah, I didn't.
Or changed your view of the situation? Yeah,
I had never really thought about it before because I am mixed. My mom's white. I was raised by a white family. Right. And so I actually had never really had a lot of education around my own experience as a Black woman, mixed woman, person of color. And it wasn't actually until that experience did I start to have like this deep, visceral, ancestral response of like, oh shit, like this has been happening to people like me forever. Is it a coincidence that they just so happen to be white,
Yes.
they just so happen to be a woman
Yes.
of color, that they just so happen to have a lot more money and education than me, and they played a game better than I did on purpose to
Right.
take it from me, which is like my soul's calling? It's not a
Yes.
coincidence. And so once I realized that, and I realized that this was actually indicative of the larger theme that's happening in wellness and has been happening with indigenous healing for God knows how long, that made me see that while this happens to people all the time, when it happens to a person who doesn't have the socioeconomic support and so happens to have societal suppression in a way that maybe white women could not relate to,
Yes.
it changes the dynamics of things. And that's when I realized I had to make a change so that things like this didn't keep happening to people of color and that they were visible in the wellness space.
Yes. How has Wellness Official shifted during the COVID-19 pandemic? What have you guys done to shift the business model?
Yeah, it's funny. We haven't really, like,
Or maybe you haven't had to, right?
Yeah, we haven't really had to do that because a lot of what I was doing as like a practitioner was already happening digitally. And so we kind of shifted Wellness Official to have more digital events. And we launched this version of the site too during the pandemic, which has been great.
Yeah,
but we
really great.
we pretty much just kind of did what we were doing in person and we brought it online. And we have had amazing partners and friends and allies like yourself, like Pop Sugar, so many amazing brands that have been supportive of us that we've been developing relationships and have been friends with for years. And so they've really like shown up and given us support and you know, taken things to the next level for us. So I think we're kind of doing the same thing.
I love hearing that. What, Millana, do you think has been the most to date? I mean, there's still so much more that you're going to be doing, but what has been the most rewarding part of creating Wellness Official to date? Is there a specific story that you can share about a moment that just that resonated, that where you said to yourself, you know, wow, this is rewarding. This is something that,
Yeah.
you know, it's given back to me what I have put out.
Yeah, I think the energy healing training that I just taught in January, which we're offering again next month, that is on the Wellness Official site. We trained 17 women on how to be energy healers, and it was I've never seen anything like this in my life. Literally, after the fourth day, I was like, I could die and I'd be good. Like it was that deep and that healing.
Powerful connection.
When
was that exactly, Millana?
Seeing people heal in like real ways, like really seeing people heal generations of trauma, healing their families, healing their childhood, like in days. There's nothing more gratifying than that, because I know personally on a very deep level what it's like to face those things, and it's very challenging. But it does so much more than your own healing. It gives you the ability to heal others, and that really changed my life.
Very powerful. And so a few questions here now too. As somebody, Millana, who's practiced all modalities of healing for over 25 years, as you said, you got started as a very young child. Can you share a common theme, a common need you've seen time and again amongst clients?
Oh, yeah.
What is that?
I would say, and I think it's probably not a coincidence that this is a theme for me, because it's been a personal experience for my own healing journey. But I think the biggest thing that comes up over and over again is people stepping into their power, like really not backing down from all the fear, the programming, the real implications in the world of like being in your real power, self-sovereign, stepping into your purpose, like just being bright. And I think I've seen both men and women do this over and over again. And I have so many stories, everything from people becoming mothers to people finally writing the scripts to, you know, starting their businesses or getting money to start their businesses. Like all of those things come out of, and those are just products of what it means to really step into your power. And that has been, I think I think that is like the biggest calling of our time, for all of us to step into our own individual and unique expression of who we came here to be. Yes. And that's also, by the way, like, not everybody's gonna like that. Not everybody's going to be like clapping and asking to be on their Instagram. It's going to take time for the people around you to accept that. And a lot of things have to fall away for that to actually be real and authentic and sustainable. And that I think has been the biggest theme that I keep seeing.
What do you think that people need to heal today in this historic and heavy year that is 2020? What do people need to heal today, Millana? What do you think?
Yeah, I think, I mean, just thinking about what's happening with race and what's happening with inequality, even before George Floyd and all the other people that have become more public, I think it's us looking at ourselves about how we have internalized oppression, because like, you know, as women, we've internalized the patriarchy. As people of color, we have internalized racism. As white people, we've all internalized it, and then it articulates through us, and it also harms us as individuals. And so, you know, a lot of these stories and beliefs that maybe we're not aware of, that we're carrying or that we're experiencing or that we're actually harming others with, only we can look at that, because only we can know what's inside of us. And so I think we need to all look at how has the oppression that we have been that we benefited from or that we have had put upon us that is still living within us. And not just because like we have internal racism that we express outwardly, which we all do, but because we all have these like beliefs around ourselves that we're not good enough, that we're not going to be able to get what we need, that we have to like take things to be able to survive. And that's internalized oppression. We don't have to do those things, but we need to know that in ourselves, and that healing only we can do.
I love that. What pains you personally these days?
Ooh, that's a good question. What pains me?
And maybe you don't want to focus on what pains you, but maybe it's good for you to share that.
Yeah, well, thankfully right now I'm feeling great. But I would say the past couple of days, what I've really had to work through is just not being afraid to speak my truth and own my identity. For me, being a mixed person, it's been uniquely challenging to speak to these things, because I do also have privileges of being a mixed person and being raised by a white family.
That's a whole other complicated set of, you know.
Exactly. And so it's difficult, because I also I experienced discrimination on both sides, actually.
On both sides.
Yeah. Right. And so that one of the things I really just this week have been like stepping into and healing has been like to own all of my identity, that I get to be all of these things. I don't have to choose a team, like, and that I actually came here to be all of these things, and that I can feel at home in being all of these things that I am, and I don't have to question it or wonder who's gonna hate it. It doesn't matter. I get to be everything that I am. And so that's been a painful experience to kind of get to this week, but I feel more clear on that now.
That's incredible. Have you missed anything, Millana, in quarantine, or do you know how to fill yourself up where there's lack?
I really miss traveling. I really
like a lot of us, right?
Yeah.
You're a travel junkie for sure.
Yeah, I think the way that I'm trying to balance that is, well, we've been driving to places to get away, to be fair, but
it's good.
But I think I could have been reading a lot more than I've been reading in the past. And I think now that I'm not able to get on a plane and travel to all the places I want to go, I get to read more. And that's another form of travel.
That's great. Reading is always on my list, and I never do enough of it.
Same.
Why do you think the term self-care has been trivialized?
Well, I think that there's like many different perspectives on that in terms of like, it depends, I guess, on who's trivializing it. But I think.
But do you get that sense that often that term gets trivialized?
Like that it's like kind of like just like, oh yeah, self-care, cool, we're doing self-care.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
I think because it's something that is like highly monetizable now, and that people are making a lot of money from self-care. That's why I actually think it's
buy our self-care bundle for $39.99.
Word for word. Yeah, exactly. I think that's why. I think the second that things start to make a lot of money, things start to get watered down. And so I think it's an important subject and theme to look at, like, how am I trying to use self-care by just spending some dough, and boom, self-care in a box. Self-care is much more than money can buy.
Yes, makes a lot of sense. That's right. What course of Wellness Official weekly healing practices would you suggest for people trying to combat loneliness and disenchantment with our current state of life?
Ooh.
If you were to give people like a recipe for what to practice every week, and things that they can find on Wellness Official right now, like what do you think people should be doing on a weekly basis?
Oh yeah, that's a great question.
We'd love to hear that from you, from the expert, you know?
Yeah, thank you. We actually have some really great practitioners on the site right now, and we'll be adding more. And one of them is this woman named Jasmine. Her name is Moondust Our Mother on Instagram, and she does human design. She's an intuitive human design.
What is human design? I'm not familiar.
Ooh.
I'm familiar with all of these things, but human design, I'm not sure that I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
Please explain.
Human design is essentially like mixing Western astrology, Vedic astrology, the I Ching, and Kabbalah astrology into one system. And it basically says that you were born at this time, at this place, and the combination of all of those things has designated a certain energetic design that only you have.
Okay, put me at the front of the list.
Ah, yeah.
Oh my God,
you will freak out when you get a reading from Jasmine.
I'm like the founder, and I want to be put to the front of the list.
Oh my God, done. I will literally send it to you today, because so there are lots of different people who read human design, and it's very, very nuanced and very deep. But one of the things that I think, to answer your question, the more that we get to know ourselves and we use these different modalities, which are just like different frameworks for us to get to know ourselves better, the more that we get to do that with people who are intuitive professionals that help us like really see ourselves more clearly, the less we feel alone in this world. Like when you
actually go back and repeat that. Repeat it one more time.
Let's see if I can. Okay, let's see if I can. The more that we start to really get to know ourselves and work with professionals and intuitives who can help us see who we really are, the less that we feel alone in the world.
That's really powerful.
There's nothing more affirming than someone seeing you. Like that's just like, oh, I'm not alone. You see me, you get me. And I think
you know, a lot of people experience not feeling seen.
Yeah.
And not to bring it back to this moment in time, I think it's even more prevalent because we are literally physically not being seen by people. We've less interaction with people than we have in the past.
Definitely.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, well, even before the quarantine, I think a lot of us found ourselves being surrounded by people who didn't really see us.
Correct. Right. Thus, like the weeding out, right? Maybe
totally. Yeah. So it's like, oh, wow, I'm at home and I'm realizing that like a lot of my friend groups don't really see like the God in me. They don't see me. And so, you know, human design, I think, is just one of many frameworks that we can use to do that. And I highly, highly recommend you guys go book a one-on-one session with Jasmine. She is incredible.
I'm going to do that for sure. And Millana, as we close out, as an intuitive person and someone who works with many others in the wellness and healing communities, what bigger notion or message of hope are you seeing right now about the state of our world? The state of our world.
Yeah.
You know, what do you have are you seeing a bigger message that you can share with all of us in the chat and all of us at large?
Definitely. I think one of the things that we're seeing is that we really are evolving. That maybe there are people who don't want to evolve, who are not ready to evolve, but the masses are ready. And it does come down to the individuals within the collective to make that choice. And I think it is very apparent that the individuals of the collective are ready to evolve. And I think, you know, I just went to one of the protests last week. I went to the Black Lives Matter protest at Mira Garcetti.
I saw that. Yeah.
And like, girl, it was so diverse, so beautiful. Yes. From celebrities to students to children to older people, everybody was there, and it was so peaceful. And you look around and you're like, Oh wow,
It's
we
a
are waking
reminder that
up.
there is some shift somewhere, right? There's progress to be made, but there's, you know, this isn't the movement of yesteryear. I'm hoping that there's been some progress, right?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think we're seeing that obviously there have been things that have like keep repeating themselves, and that's one way to look at it. But I think everyone can agree that the collective is mobilizing and that we are evolving as a people. And now we can't just stop at racial justice. Like we still have the planet to take care of. We still have healthcare to make just. We still have a lot education to make affordable and equitable. Like there's a lot of things we have to do.
There's
right
more
now.
work to be done.
Yeah.
Do you think that this is the breaking, do you think this is the entry point to all that? Is that what you're saying?
I think that the spotlight is so bright that we can no longer ignore it. So you know, people will do what they will, but you can't look away anymore. And so I think our whole culture and what we prioritize is going to completely start to shift. And the people who aren't ready for that or who don't want to do that will be left behind. And I think we'll even see it economically. I mean, you even see it with businesses and people having to step down from their companies. If they can't evolve with this changing tide where the light is so bright, then they can't even keep their jobs anymore. And so this is the movement. It's happening. It's been happening for a while, but now we can't turn away. And I think the positive sign of that is that we have to use this momentum and start to change our priorities as individuals and as a collective.
I think that's a great way to leave our conversation. Millana,
Thank you.
I love you. Everybody
you.
follow Millana Snow, follow Wellness Official, book your sessions. I'm booking mine. And we're going to talk again this summer, okay? We'll do another live.
I would love that. Thank you.
Bye,
Bye
guys.
everyone.